So we're gonna make a slab box. I rolled out the slab 2 days ago and I put it encased in plastic on a tile backing board, a wear board, and another one on top. I came in, well, during enrichment, so about an hour ago, I took it out of the bag and I just put it in between the tile backing board, the wear boards, to allow it to dry flat and get some of that moisture sucked out of it. So now the clay is not plastic anymore. Yeah, you want it to support its weight and not be floppy and falling apart when you construct a slab box. You want the slab sides to stay upright and stay together. So it's not quite leather hard, but it's a little stiff so that you can work with it and it'll be ideal. If you let your slab get to be leather hard, like really leather hard or almost bone dry, you have to start over. So you could get a ruler and measure and cut your sides of your slab, plan it out, or cut a paper stencil. If you want to do like a pyramid and cut out triangular shapes, you can do that. If you want to do like octagon or hexagon shapes, you could, cut a base like this and then do skinnier slabs. It's really up to your imagination of what you want to do. I also have these tile cutters that are professional tile cutters that are used for making tiles that would be used to tile a bathroom counter. So, let's see. You just push this down. And you see I use the wood grain texture. I've got 1, 2, and I think I'm going to make this box something like this. That's got, skinnier sides. So I'm going to measure with this to see where I want to cut that. And I might just measure. I think I'm going to want it to be 2 inches. So I'm just going to make a little mark. And then I'm going to cut it with my straight edge, my ruler. Actually, I'm going to straighten this edge up. Make sure it's a right angle. 2 inches. Do you see, instead of measuring again, I just used my first slab as a stencil. And I'm going to go ahead and connect these like this and like this. And then I'll do the same over here. And what I'm going to do, and there's a couple different things you could do. You could, if you were working with all the same size, you could just cut a 45-degree angle like that all the way down. If you did that on each slab, when you score and slip them at that angle, it would come together so the corners touch, like on the outside. I'm going to go ahead and use my brush and apply a bead of water at each seam. So I'm going to connect this part to this part like that. You don't have to do it that way, but so I'm going to score this very thoroughly. Because you're working with slightly dried clay, like in between plastic and leather hard, it's important you score deeply. I think the most casualties that happen with this slab box is that you think you made a good seam and you put it together thoroughly, but then when it starts to dry, if the seam isn't totally like connected firmly and very thoroughly, the clay will separate and you'll get cracks at all the seams. So, water. Here, go ahead and feel that. Yeah, go for it. Can you feel like how dry it is? like it's stiff. And then putting it in between the wear boards helps the clay to dry flat, because clay has memory. Okay, it'll be the soundtrack. Now, another layer of water. I would add, so do the tearing up the surface, add a bit of water, score up the surface again until the whole surface is just wet, sticky, and when you stick it together, the more wet the clay is, the more towards the plastic stage of clay, you don't have to score so much. The more towards the leather hard stage of clay, you have to score more. Okay, so now I'm going to take this and I'm going to go ahead and, so the video can see the seam, I'm going to compress the clay. I'm going to go ahead and lift this up right now. And I'll turn it so you guys can see. So I'm taking this clay and I'm compressing. Compressing. Do you see what's happening on the outside? You see that? Show the video again. It's oozing, the slip is oozing out the seam, which is kind of what you want. And then I'm going to smooth this, right? Smooth that. The other thing that you're going to want to do is take some soft clay. I think I demonstrated this in the slab cylinder, like for seams. So if you take a little coil, really wet clay. I took this off of the kind of the recycled clay area where the clay is a little wet and sticky. And then you can take this clay and put it in the crease. See? And then you're going to take that clay and pull it with your finger and compress it into the crease. You notice the slabs are not changing form. They're not getting indented. They're not flopping over or moving around because the clay is so dry. I mean, it's so stiff. I allowed it to stiffen up to the right consistency where it's very workable for what we're trying to do here. So you want all your seams to be nice and even, no cracks. You can see where this started to come apart here where I was pushing. And smooth. See? If you're doubting the seam, you see I compressed it more and more clay started to come up that seam.
Did you dry the clay with the texture?
Yeah. So I took a big slab of the fresh clay, I rolled it through the slab roller once, and then I rolled it again with the texture mat on top.
And when you put the wear boards on it, did you leave the texture?
No. I took the texture off, and then because it's just flat and it's already like whatever you press in, this I actually carved with a loop tool, just a contrast. So I'm just playing with that kind of contrast of textures on this particular piece. Now, be careful, pay attention, like everything you do, you want to pay attention to what you do, because for this next side, if I put it in a different alignment, it'll be a different size, right? So what did I do over here? I put it on top, so I want to put it on top again. But, and then if they're not quite matching up, I can use my needle tool and like kind of carve it and level it before I add the next piece. And then for this piece here, I'm gonna score. For longer pieces, I would recommend doing the walls before you do the bottom, because that will allow you to, once I score this, compress, smooth, I can get that little coil and reach it in halfway and pull up, reach it in halfway, and then do the other side as well, instead of not being able to reach the inside, to really compress it this way and compress it from the inside. And then the last step would be to score and slip the bottom. Cut out a piece that's the right size, or that's a little bigger than you need, right? Figure out what you want for the bottom. That's a little too small. Whoops. But then I would score and slip the bottom and compress the bottom. If you want to make a lid, I'm going to do a demo on the next video to show how to make lids successfully. You want to use the same amount of dryness on the clay, because if you try to put a wet clay lid on a box, it'll droop. You want it to be a stiff slab. Okay? And that's really the gist of it. You can make any form, like I said, octagon, pyramid, however many sides